4 years ago, June 1st, I remember going to Dr. Soyini Hawkins to be evaluated for the fibroids and ovarian cysts that I was suffering from, to do a myomectomy. And I'll never forget the look on her face when she asked me, what was that she just saw? And I'm like, huh? She said, yeah, there's a tumor. They didn't tell you you had a tumor? And of course, I didn't know that there was even a growth that is in my pelvic region outside of the fibroids and cysts. No one saw anything on the 22nd of February that year. So of course, to our surprise, that was a 3 centimeter tumor that came out of nowhere. The thing about that day though, I learned about myself. I can handle hard things, because after that discussion, she sent me to get a CAT scan. I did. I remember telling my husband and my mom I need to go get a CAT scan just in preparation for surgery. What I left out of that conversation from every single person was that she had already told me she thinks it's cancer. It actually was something I had to hold on to for a while, because my mom's birthday is June 4th. And having that knowledge from the 1st of June to go through the 4th of June and pretend as if every single thing is okay, I had to basically dissociate from the diagnosis that when on the 2nd of June, the CAT scan confirmed it was in fact cancer. I couldn't let my husband know, because poor thing, he can't keep a secret. So I didn't tell my mom and my husband until the 8th of June when the biopsy results came in. And I finally had to tell them, because of course they knew I'd gone in to do a biopsy, and of course they were anticipating the results. But that made me realize I can do hard things, but I couldn't do hard things if I didn't have Christ. And I just realized today while I was at my oncologist, oh, it really does weigh down on you if your spirit is not ready for things like this. When you're a believer, believe like Job. Believe like Job. Because when these things happen, you have to know that God is with you. You have to know that God is going to take care of it. You have to know that God is allowing certain things just for a certain time. He didn't give me cancer. In fact, I knew that I was going to have cancer before I got it. In January 2022, my mom had a dream around the 27th of the month, and she saw in the dream where I was being attacked by a demon, and the demon was standing in my chest, stomping on my chest to kill me. The coincidence is my mom was at my house. In the dream, the room that she was in, she and I were sleeping together, which happens often. I tend to sleep with my mom quite often. In the house that I was staying in, I was a customer's house, working on their house throughout the night. And I was praising and worshiping. And I remember listening to the sermon before I said, you know what, let me go ahead and take some sleep before the workers come in the morning. And I did. I went to bed about 2 something. And I remember laying there probably about 3:30, and I just could not breathe because something was standing in my heart and in my chest. And I knew it was a demonic attack, and I kept trying to call out for Jesus, and I just could not get the words out. Every single thing in me was just stifled, and I knew it was spiritual, because when it is spiritual, you can't get the words out, and you feel every single thing that they're doing to you, but at the same time your body is quote unquote at sleep. So with that, the next morning, my mom came, and as Jamaicans, we always say, sit down when we're giving bad news. My mom asked me to sit. And when she started telling me the dream, I intercepted and I said, you had the dream about 3:30. She said, yes. She said, how you know? I said, because it actually happened. The demon literally manifested and actually on my chest stomped so many times that I couldn't breathe. It was in my heart and in my lungs. And I was trying to call out for the name of Jesus. So while she was fighting and I was fighting, we were both travailing, because right then and there, within a 2-day period, in my own dream, I walked into a conference room with the devil, and it was some of the demons who literally said, I'm going to give her cancer to kill her. And in that moment, I realized when they saw me that they projected this arrow, and I couldn't quite see the arrow come at me, but it happened so fast. When it hit my abdomen, it literally felt in my dream like I was boiling a pot of soup in my belly. I jumped up in the bed and I started rebuking it. I started, canceling, binding it, but it was too late. At this point, I should have been fasting and waging warfare prayer, and I didn't. So that morning I woke up and I felt ill, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it, what was really the cause of it, because I didn't correlate the dream to the illness, which I should have. Another day, just after this happened, I had a dream with a little girl that was a spiritual daughter. And I've had the knowledge over the years that from a spiritual husband attack, I've had a spiritual daughter. For those who understand the spiritual realm, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So in the dream, I told the spiritual daughter to leave me alone because she came to breastfeed, and I said, leave me alone to let me have my own children. Because of you, I cannot have my natural children. I rebuked her and she left me, and she said, I'm going to leave you for you to have your twin girls. Now, I had been prophesied to several times that I was going to have twins, which is in my family. But my husband actually had dreamt the twins when I had asked the Lord to reveal upon us what we were going to be, having. Shortly after that, about a day or two, I just could not stand. My right side just started hurting and swelling out of the blue. I just had this really terrible gas pain that is just unreasonable. Kept burping uncontrollably, drinking copious amounts of ginger tea, and it just wasn't working. So my mom asked, of course, for me to go to the doctor. And it took about 2 weeks for me to get an appointment. And when I did, the doctor confirmed that I had multiple ovarian cysts and what seemed like multiple fibroids. Within 4 days, the test did confirm I had 11 fibroids and 9 ovarian cysts. So we wanted to preserve my fertility, and she said, instead of doing a hysterectomy, let's go ahead and do a myomectomy. I searched for months before I could get a specialist, a fibroid specialist, and Dr. Soyini Hawkins was one of the best and recommended in the industry, and it took 4 months for me to get an appointment with her. So in that 4 months, I remember the April, I was in pain, and I remember saying to my mom in bed, what if it's cancer? It's not like I wanted cancer. It's just my spirit knew that I was afflicted with cancer. And although they didn't see it in February, it was nowhere on the transvaginal exam or on the other ultrasounds. My spirit knew it was developing. So it's as if it was cushioning me and getting me ready for what was going to happen June 1st. So June 1st happened, and I wasn't surprised. I think that's why I was able to hold that news until June 8th, when I finally told my mom and my husband and a friend of mine. Now, I celebrate today, 4 years after. But I want to give those people who are just getting diagnosed the encouragement that once your mindset is rooted in what Christ says, every test that comes, and trust me, you are going to be tested. I remember having to remind the devil that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear his evil, any evil, because God is with me. And I commanded every single affliction, anything, pain, cancer, whatever that was happening, any symptom, I commanded it to bow to the feet of Jesus, because that was what the word says. He said, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall tell that Jesus Christ is Lord. So cancer, you have to bow, because cancer, you're a spirit. You're an affliction that came from the demonic realm. And so you have to bow at the command of Jesus. I am delivered only because of Jesus. Medicine did help. I'm never going to say it didn't, but my own doctors admit chemo and radiation could not push a tumor out. Every single time I go to the hospital, the doctors, nurses, or anybody who has to handle my case remind me that a tumor doesn't push itself out. So I should try to find another name to describe it, but that's not something I'm going to lie about. I can't take God's glory from him. The cancer crowned like a baby. My oncology NP watched it happen. My chemo nurse watched it happen. My husband watched it happen. So I can't take God's glory away from him. And it was only because of deliverance that that happened. So as I celebrate again today, the day that I was diagnosed, today is not for me to celebrate because only I got over cancer, but because God gave me this opportunity to bring people to him for his glory. And as I'm doing this series, you're going to hear so many times that the devil came back for me. It wasn't just cancer. In fact, I have been suffering since last year, 2025, June, a year now, with sepsis almost every single month. Last year, it was exactly 6 months that I battled sepsis. This year, so far, I've battled it 3 months. Of course, it's a complication from the nephrostomy tubes and the bladder stents that I have to wear since the tumor tore out a part of my bladder on its way out and now has left me with a fistula between my bladder and my vagina. They have diverted that urine through nephrostomy tubes in both kidneys, and your body doesn't like foreign objects. So I have to be changing my tubes pretty much every month to 6 weeks, and my bladder stents, and the bladder stents weren't changed for almost 2 years at the time, and that was what kicked off the series of sepsis. So for those who are going through pelvic cancer, any pelvic cancer at all, when you do radiation, be very mindful that it's going to weaken your tissues and it become friable. And in some of these cases, you'll have to wear nephrostomy bags, colostomy bags, urostomy bags, whichever one, or an Indiana pouch. That's something that I pray that you don't become septic from. Another thing, if your spiritual life is weak, your body follows. Strengthen your spiritual life before anything happens to you in life. And as you're going through any illness and an affliction, keep strengthening your spiritual life. When you overcome in the spirit, your body overcomes. I want to end this message today with encouraging every single ill person that if you declare with your mouth, Psalm 118, verse 17, and you truly believe it, that you shall live and not die, but to declare the works of the Lord, you will. Have faith that Mark 11, 23 and 24 is real. It will happen when you pray. Your faith has to be cemented, though, in the word, that it's a finished work, according to Isaiah 53, verse 5. It was done on the cross. But you also have to wage war when the devil comes and remind him whose you are and who you are, because he is going to test you like he did Job. Have a good one. And for anyone who is listening to this message, please share it with someone who you know who needs encouragement, especially with illness or just a trying time in life.